Hello, hello. Welcome to Media Queen TV. So excited today. We have the legendary Todd Polke with us here for our interview. We're going to be chatting about how to protect and build your wealth. Now, Todd is a wealth strategist. He's been working with investments the last 20 years in property, shares, business. He's an expert at giving strategic advice to help people create financial freedom and sovereignty so that people can live the life they want. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you so much. Really appreciated being here.
Great to have you here. I love how open-minded you are and how you speak your truth. We need more of this in the world. It's so great to have you here. So if we could just start out with a bit of your background, how did you actually get into being a wealth strategist?
Yeah, great question. And, it all started for me basically when I broke myself when I was about 19 or 20 years old, right? So before I got involved in the wealth and investing world, I was a burnout personal trainer. I was getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'd be training clients until about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. And then running a small business, as you know, the day never stops just because the number of clients you have in the day stops, especially when you're a one-man band, which is what I was back there. And so I would then spend another 4 hours working, doing marketing and programs to write and admin, the bane of my existence, and all the different things you've got to think about when you're running a business. And so my day would finish by about midnight. And then I'd start again at 4 a.m. the next morning. And I'd do that 6 days a week. And I'd do that 50 weeks a year, because my whole version or rule of creating success in life at the time was simply this: well, the harder I work, the more successful I'll become. And that's what I did, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And by about the age of 20, I broke myself. I broke my relationship. I broke my body. I wound up in, I was playing judo for Australia at the point in time, and I was in the military and lifting a lot of heavy weights. I wound up in hospital, unable to walk, and had leg surgery in both my legs. I was getting sick all the time, go Todd, personal trainer, getting crook all the time. And then I remember very, very well, it was December 15, and I just turned 20. And I remember I was sitting in the cliffs on Kangaroo Point in Brisbane. Like anyone that knows Brisbane, you got the city, and on one side you got the Brisbane River, and then on the other side you've got Kangaroo Point Cliffs and South Bank. And there's some gorgeous big cliffs there, some lovely stairs that used to get people to run up and down all the time. And I was sitting on the top of those cliffs, reflecting back at the year that has just gone, and realizing that the way I'd been doing life was not working. That again, health broken, relations broken, no personal life to speak about. And then the thing which really tipped me over the edge, the one area where I thought it was supposed to be doing well based on how much time I was putting in, was my finances. And I was broke financially as well. And I really just got to the point of going, this shit's broken. This system that we're taught that we're supposed to follow in life is a system that's designed to turn people into a financial slave, right? And that's what it is. And from that point in time, my whole psychology shifted. I started going on a hunt, trying to find another way. And on my journey of reading different books and attending different events and meeting different mentors, I made a decision when I was 20 years old that I wanted to buy my very first property deal in 6 months' time. So I learned about real estate and investing and what it can do. And but I had a bit of a problem. I had no money, right? Which is a bit of a problem when you're trying to buy a property. But yes, here's what I know: when you make a true decision, and then you leave all your excuses behind you, you can make some magic happen. And I wound up buying my first property 6 months later. I'd saved up $9,000, got the first homeowner's grant, got my first property in Labrador over on the Gold Coast, did a renovation on that property after another 6 months, saving up a little bit more money. And I wound up making $70,000 in that first property deal while I was living in there, fulfilling the first homeowner's grant, which was instantly more than my entire year's income from personal training after working 17 hours a day. And from that moment on, everything shifted in my life. I got out of everything I was doing in a very short period of time. I wanted to get in real estate, started in residential real estate. And then honestly, my original mentor, I literally annoyed the crap out of the guy twice a week for 6 months until he made a job for me in the property investing world. And 20 years later, this is what I've been teaching, speaking, training around all over the different world, and worked with thousands of investors and done billions of dollars worth of deals, and helping people to create freedom, because there's a better way to do life.
Wow, amazing. And is that original mentor still alive or still around now?
100%. He's one of my best friends. Yeah. We're in business together now. He's one of my best friends. I was literally talking to him this morning, and Yeah, no, he's one of my best buddies. Yeah.
Oh, great. Amazing, amazing. And so getting that first, savings together when you had no money, because this is a situation with a lot of people. They want to get into
Yeah.
property, but it just seems to be getting harder and harder and prices keep going up. And so what do you suggest for people who don't have much money? What are some creative things they can do to get into property?
Yeah, great question. And so what I would say first and foremost is a lot of people go, oh, it's too expensive, and then they give up before they even start. And so we either find a way, we find an excuse, right? And that's how it is in life. And that's might have been a little bit of the boot camp, personal trainer, me coming out or whatever it is. But I really do believe that's the case. So like when you truly make a decision, you can find a way. But the way I look at it now, and although my wealth primary, where I hold my wealth is in real estate, I do shares and I do crypto and I do funds and I do business investments and a whole lot of different things. Because to me, it's never about the asset itself. It's about the purpose the asset is there to serve in the portfolio. So when we think about investing, it's not just about what property or share you're going to buy. It's your psychology. It's your personal finances that you need to get yourself in order and get a system around that. And then you need to start getting yourself invested and start the process of compounding capital to get your money working hard for you. Because if you don't do that, then you wind up spending your entire life working hard for money. And so to me, the whole thing is that how can we create an ecosystem around you that's going to support where you need to go, which includes how do we grow your income? How do we take control of your finances? How do we get invested in a small way and start building that? And so wealth creation starts to become a normal process for you in life, right? And so I like to take a really broad perspective around that. And then it's just a matter of, okay, well, what's my end result? Okay, how am I going to get there? And then we start putting one foot in front of the other, and consistency is the name of the game in this sport.
And it always seems to be the first property is always the hardest. And I must say, when I first invested in property years ago, I had a full-time job as a journalist. So it was much easier back then, showing that kind of income. And then low doc loans were a lot easier to get than they are now. So
it was a wild west in lending back there, 15, 20 years ago. It was a lot of fun. It's very different now.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who don't have the financials that stack up and that need a low doc loan, what are some creative ways they can do that?
Yeah, a great question. So one thing I see a lot of people get caught up in is they get caught up in the cost of the money and what interest rates are, and whether interest rates are 3% or 5% or 7% or 8%. And they get really caught up and zero in on that one element, and they fail to see the forest through the trees, right? To me, when I'm thinking about interest rates and things like that, the cost of the money is not the most important element to me, right? It's actually number 4 on my criteria of how I look for a loan. Flexibility and liquidity is always number 1. For those who want to build a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio, especially with property, the most important thing is not the cost of the money. It's your ability to continue accessing capital on a consistent basis, right? And so when we start thinking about low documentation style lending, and for those who don't know, low doc lending, full doc, they want to know what's your income, like where you work, how long you've been there, where you live, what you had for breakfast yesterday, what that, $1.21 credit card charge was in 1987 or something like that. They want to know everything, right? And they want your firstborn as well. But when it comes to low doc, you can do different levels of low doc, right? There's a low doc which goes, hey, I've got business financials, I can prove those. But then you can do ultra low doc, which is just get an accountant who can sign off an income declaration, and as long as you're GST registered, you can do it. So the point I want to get at there is that when we start thinking about our strategy to build our wealth, we can't just think about, well, what's the next deal I'm going to do, or what am I going to do next? We have to think about, well, how are we going to set ourselves up so that we can continue moving forward year after year after year without getting stuck? And so what I talk to a lot of people about when it comes to lending, knowing that that is going to be a roadblock, and it will be for everybody, how can we start setting up now that in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time, when you hit your serviceability wall, because you will, that you have other elements in the portfolio that's going to start kicking into gear. So increasing personal income, portfolio income, turning over chunks of capital to put down more money into deals to begin with, but also starting to set yourself up. Well, how can I begin accessing different types of lending, second and third tier lenders that are more flexible and willing to work in with you? And whether that's starting a business or putting things in trusts or creating other income streams from different ways, we got to think several steps ahead, like I kind of think about it like a chess grandmaster, right? They say that a chess grandmaster can see 17 moves ahead, right? Up to 17 moves, like the moves and the counter moves and what the opponent does. And we've got to start thinking like that as an investor as well. What's coming and how can we set ourselves up?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And, they say every 7 years property doubles. Well, what's your experience with that?
Well, I would say, where are you talking about, and what type of property? So we hear a lot about the Australian property market or the US property market or the UK property market or wherever you might be. But anytime I hear something that says the Australian property market, whatever comes after that sentence is ignorance, right? Because there's no such thing as the Australian property market. It does not exist. It's made up of submarkets within submarkets within submarkets, and all of them are being driven by some different factors. So I've certainly held property and seen it double and do more than double in 7 or 10 odd years, right? 100%. Look, I've had property that has doubled in 3 to 4 odd years because I bought the right property at the right market at the right time in the market. But I've also seen a lot of assets, like I bought that first property deal, made a lot of money to begin with, but it did nothing for another 6 to 7 odd years. And so I got rid of it out of the portfolio. So because it wasn't the right property in the right market, which is conducive to what's going on. So that does work, but saying it's a hard and fast rule, I'm not about that. I think it's all about, well, how do we zero in and find those individual properties that are going to outperform the rest of the marketplace? And that's how you really build a portfolio which massively outperforms, right? Rather than just kind of dripping along and watching grass grow.
It's amazing how quick things can change if you get a good deal. Like, for example, I'm in Southport, literally across the road. We've now had some Melbourne developers come in. They've just bought 3 blocks across the road and 2 in the street behind. They're just about to build 150 units across the road from my place. Basically going to block my whole view of Southport and Surfers Paradise. And then there's a house. Yeah, it's so rude. I know. Consideration. So right next door, though, there's another house. So most of the houses have sold between about 1 and 1.2 million. And someone bought in at 850 this house that's about a 600 square meter block. And now, literally 3 months later, they've got on the market for 1.15. Wow. And so within a few months, if you buy well, you can do them, and I'm sure he'll sell that in. It'll just go very quickly, because the fact is, in Australia, we've got so many people coming into Australia. There's a real shortage of properties now. I would say rentals. They're saying there's a rental crisis. So many people having trouble finding something. So really, when you look at supply and demand, things aren't going to go backwards anytime soon, I think. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And, it's interesting when you listen to the media and the politicians, and they're all quacking about, we're handling this, how the rental crisis, we're doing this. But the policies that they're putting out are never going to work. They're just not, right? They're suggesting, and I don't remember the figures off the back of top of my head, they're going to build 1 million new houses in the next 5 years. I think it's those figures. I can't quite remember. But Australia has failed to build 200,000 properties a year every single year for the history of time, apart from 1 year. And now the government's coming in and going, oh no, we're going to solve this, and we're going to make all this noise, that we're going to make all this better and that type of stuff. But Australia as a country has failed to deliver that at any point in time, no matter what is going on. And I really like what you said, I 100% agree with, because if we have to look at the environment which we're in right now, we have this incredibly huge undersupply, which is sitting there already. We have an immigration policy which is designed to grow Australia by 40 million new people in the next 20 years. I can't remember what it was, maybe 30 years. 40 million new people, and the current immigration policy is 300,000 people a year are currently moving to Australia right now. We've had all these building companies go bust, and so we physically don't have the manpower and a severe shortage of skilled labor to actually go physically manufacture a piece of real estate. We have councils inept at effectively releasing enough land in order to be able to do that and allow council approval to be able to go through any type of format that people can that developers can come in and develop land in a big way, and very, very expensive to be able to do that. And so the environment is not set up to even vaguely think about creating more supply. We have this massive undersupply, this hugely growing population, and then we've got the policies around like the rent to buy type of scenario. Buy to rent, build to rent scenarios are coming in a big way. I don't know if you've seen much about those, but if you look at what's happening, the government is setting everybody up for a lifetime of renting. That's what's coming, right? And the breadcrumbs lead there. And I could talk about 5 different factors that do that, but the government is setting everyone up for a lifetime of renting. And so what's happening is that there's a big policy push to get big funds, big developers overseas and in Australia to build real estate, not to sell to the open marketplace, but to rent out to people. And so what that's going to do is that there's going to limit the amount of supply on the marketplace for people to be able to physically go buy a piece of real estate and own it for their own home. I was looking at some stats in South Melbourne just recently at a deal that one of my clients is looking at going into. And 50% of the new supply, 50% in the next 3 years that's coming on is going towards build to rent. It's not even going to hit the open marketplace. So this affordability issue that we have right now is not going to get any better. It's just not. And quite frankly, I think if you're not invested in the next 10 years, you probably never will be.
Wow, this is all part of this agenda that you will own nothing and be happy, right? This is all part of this, right? And then capping the rents, right? And I put a post up on my Facebook the other day saying, well, if you want to cap the rents, let's also cap the land rates, the water rates, the taxes, right? Let's all cap that as well for homeowners, right? Because people think, oh, you're a homeowner, you're wealthy, let's help the renter out, and they don't think of all the expenses that go in when you do own property too. So you've really got to look at all of that, wouldn't you say?
Well, you're also going to look at people, in the media, property investors are made a bit of scapegoats, and they get directed a fair bit of anger. The wealthy people own all the property. It's not accurate. Like, most people that own and invest in properties, your average mum or dad who are trying to set themselves up for the future. It's not the people who have millions of dollars in cash and big companies and things like that. It's a complete and utter lie, right? But property investors are used, when the government wants to raise capital, they go try hit property investors. And when the media wants to go at someone, it's property investors around that. It's a big way. And what you just said a moment ago, talking about rental caps, again, it's not going to work, because here's what's going to happen. If they cap the rent, you raise rents once every 2 years. At that 2-year mark, when that tenant can move on and that landlord can actually go up the rents all over again, the rental could potentially, the market rent might have grown substantially at that period of time. And so when they reprice it to the current market at that point, the current tenant may not be able to afford this massive jump in rent that potentially is just going to be happening. And so we're going to see this cycle of, maybe it's not a 12-month cycle, it's a 2-year cycle, as opposed to incremental rental increases that people can kind of handle very, very, strongly in their situation. But you're right, like, they're focusing on, we'll cap rentals, but that's a very blinkered approach to solving an issue, as opposed to looking at all the broad spectrum of different things which are actually going on, which is creating this environment in the first place.
Yes, very interesting times at the moment. And, of course, we've got a growing homeless population, of course, at the moment too. And, I always think, there's really no reason for people to be homeless in Australia. A lot of people who are homeless, there's mental health issues, there's substance abuse issues, alcoholism. I mean, we have the dole here, we have Centrelink. And in fact, we have a culture now where we're encouraging people not to work, and we're paying them not to work. Like, a lot of people think, why would I work if I get why would I work if I get so much money from the government here in Australia, right? And it just blows me away. We're developing a lazy culture. And in fact, just up the road here at Labrador, I was getting my hair done. They said the pizza place next door, the Thai restaurant, they can't find staff because no one wants to work, right? So
it's tragic. It's terrible, and it's going to destroy Australia as a economic country for the future. And Australians get lazy because we have resources, right? And we're very, very lucky country at that, right? Like, so, I once heard the New Zealand Prime Minister, it was many years ago, they said Australia is a lucky country because we have all these resources that everybody wants in places where no one wants to live. And it's really, really true, right? And so we're lazy because Australia as a country has some resources that a lot of developing nations really, really want and really, really need. But if you go and apply the same principles that we're applying and creating this culture of laziness, which is I agree with, and you go apply that to some Asian countries, there's no saving you. You starve. Like, that's what happens. But like, you can sit down on your backside, be a complete waste of oxygen your entire life. Now, obviously, some people need it, right? And the mental health for people, of abuse, victims of abuse, and like, it's needed 100%. But the number of people, unfortunately, that I have known that are jibbing the system so they don't do anything is really quite ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. And a lot of people can be financially undisciplined their entire life and then still get paid for the rest of their life with a pension, even though they haven't actually planned for the future, right? And I think it's setting us up for, and we can't afford the aging population. It's just a fact. That's why I think the superannuation system is at risk. I think anyone who's relying on superannuation for the retirement have got rocks in their heads. I really do. I think it's a system that's going to be destined to fail. And I think the government's going to be grabbing that and rationing it to people as a pension later on, because we can't afford the aging population. It's just a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. So many died through COVID. Isn't that interesting? So many, so many who had the jab, for example, just dropped off. And, a lot of interesting stuff has happened in the last few years. A lot more people are waking up to the agendas at play here. And we do encourage people to do their own research with everything out there. And this is not financial advice here today. Disclaimer. Okay, there's no financial advice. We're just giving our opinions, okay? And you can, we do advise you go and seek a professional if you want some financial advice. And of course, you are a professional, Todd, with what you do. So if people want to see you and actually have a professional consultation, then they could do that, and then you could talk about their individual circumstances, right? With that. So yes, very interesting things at play with this aging population. That we know how nursing homes in general treat the elderly. And, we know how many tablets and things they're on, a lot of them. In fact, my dad just went into hospital last week in Brighton, had a heart condition, and he was in for 5 days. He was on 8 tablets a day. Now he's going to be on 11 tablets a day because he had pulmonary edema, which basically means when the heart stops functioning, the fluid goes in the lungs. And so now he's on 11 tablets a day. He lost 4 kilos while he was in hospital. And in hospital, they're feeding them things like white bread and cream caramel and like sugar and crappy food in hospital. And while there's a lot of great people in the health industry as well, right? I'm not discounting all of it, but I'm just saying, this is the system that we're in. This is how people are educated. The doctors are doing their best, I'm sure. The nurses are doing their best, I'm sure. However, a lot more people now are looking to how can we do things more naturally? How can we become more sustainable, self-sustainable? How can we live off the land? How can we produce our own food? Because now we're seeing also many countries that they're not even allowed to have gardens, right? Their own self-sustainable gardens. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. You just opened a whole can of worms right there, which is a beautiful little cave to dive down. Look, I think you're right. I think in general, like I've thought about this a lot, right? And people would say the education system is supposed to help you for life, but I think about what are the 4 primary things that people might need in life, right? 4 primary things to be able to succeed at this thing called life as adults. One is certainly their health, right? And having their health and having their vitality and having their energy. Yet in the schooling system, what we're taught about is this ridiculous notion called the food pyramid, which is, really just bought based on the big, who's got the most money to be able to fund it. And if you turn it on its head, it's probably going to do a lot better. Like it's ridiculous. We're taught about, the gastrocnemius muscle in your calf and how to throw a javelin or something like that. But how are we taught how to actually create a habit of lifestyle eating and understanding food, and what we put in our body has an impact on it, right? And how our food is actually created and how it's actually produced and what's the bastardization which is happening to our food at this point in time. We're not taught anything about it. So that's number 1, health. Number 2 is communicating relationships, right? Like men and women, masculine and feminine, are completely different creatures. And anyone listening in, we communicate in different ways. But whether we're talking about intimate relationships or friendships or things like that, how are we taught how to communicate effectively in relationships, right? Number 3 is, of course, finances. Like people say money's not important, yet try living without it. We work our entire lives for money, but we're never taught how to use it, how to manage it, how to grow it, how to do anything with it. And then number 4 is how do we actually design and then set goals, design the life of our dreams, and actually go out and do it. We're not taught anything about it. What we're taught to do is, I'll go study hard so you can get a safe, secure job. Then you buy a home with a fat mortgage on it, pay it off over 30 odd years, exchange time for money, put money away in a super thinking that's going to save you, listen to the system, listen to the government, listen to the tax officers, and then work for 50 years of your life and then hope you're going to rely and live the good life in the future. But that rule of life sets you up for financial slavery and then a lifetime of poverty, right, for in retirement, because in the pension system for a single person is only $24,000 a year. Now, and that's what it is. Like, I can't live on 24 grand a year. And why the bloody hell would you want to live on 24 grand a year? You know, like, you should be wanting more for that in your life. So the system is not set up for people to win. It's set up to turn people into functioning cogs in an economic wheel of society, where this is why empowerment is everything. And we're talking about the whole COVID fiasco, which just happened. And there was a lot of bullshit that happened. But one beautiful thing, and you mentioned this before, is that a lot of people started waking up. Some people went, no, they were pushed too far. They started to see through the veil. And a lot of people wait, and a lot didn't, but a lot of people started to wake up. And,
Yes.
you know, how can I grow my own food? How, if something like this, or when something like this happens again, how will I and the people I love be safe? How can we communicate together? How can we work together as community to be able to grow things? How can I be more sovereign in what I do? And these are critical things, are massive on financial sovereignty, because when you have choices at your disposal and you are empowered, all of a sudden, no matter what happens in the future, whatever comes your way, you can navigate what's going to happen. Because financial security, by just having a safe, secure job, is bullshit. Just having your home bit paid off is not secure. And then having a little bit of money in the bank for a rainy day, there's zero financial security in that. And after the global financial crisis, and then COVID, and then whatever happens next, it's been proven over and over and over again. The system is broken. It does not work if you want to live a life of financial freedom and financial sovereignty, and to be able to be out there living the life that you want to live.
Yeah, nicely said. And so it's the self-sustainable thing. Now, a lot of people are growing their own veggies and fruit, etc., in Australia. And you can do it with just a small balcony, right? You don't need a huge amount of space to do it. But a lot more people are now looking at this because, of course, food prices have gone up and petrol prices have just gone through the roof. And, you know, inflation is real, right? It's happening. And a lot more people are feeling the pinch now. And so what are some things that they can do, some other things they can do to get empowered with their sovereignty?
Yeah. And just touching on that inflation thing, and this is really important. You know, a lot of people get very fearful about investing and about growing their wealth in that way. They get very fearful about it. And I understand why people are fearful about it, because it's not part of our normal day-to-day life. What's normal is paying a bill. I teach a lot of my students that we want to normalize wealth creation, right? And so one habit I teach a lot of my students is that every time you pay a bill, pay yourself as well. And what I mean by that is that put $5 into an investment. Right, you pay a bill, invest $5 as well. So we start normalizing wealth creation, create the habit of taking care of your finances. Because unfortunately, most people only get to their money when there's a bill to pay, when it's tax time, when there's emergency, or when it's too late. And then they're in reaction mode. And that's the big mode that we really want to get out of. So I'm one of those. Like I was talking to you before the show. Like I've just bought a rainforest over in Currumbin Valley, which is beautiful, and I'm growing my own food here, and we've got our own water, and we're going completely off grid, and all the things that we're doing because we want to be able to have that in place. But you know what? And I had to learn a lot about growing some food and some food farms, and I've had to learn a lot about like self-sustainability and about water. But the point I'm really getting at there is it all comes down to education, right? And I believe purely in empowerment, you know, and that's why I'm a teacher at heart. That's who I am. I love to teach, and anyone that's been to any of my trainings, or I just give and give and give. I've got so much to share with you. I need to tell you everything right now, and that's kind of what I'm like and that's why I'm talking a million miles an hour. And so when it comes time to doing this, you've got to go, well, where am I at risk in life? Okay, where are the risk points in life? Okay, so food, and so water, and you touched on some other things before around illegal to grow your own gardens. There are places in Australia and also in the US right now where it's illegal to harvest rainwater, right? That is actually saying that the rain that comes down from the sky is not yours. It's owned by the government. And there are
Wow.
places where it's literally illegal to capture water that's coming out of the sky, right? And this is some of the crazy stuff which is starting to happen. I'm just making some investments into some hemp farms and some things like this. And what was interesting is that, and a lot of very, very smart people who are more futurists and look where it's going. One of the biggest industries is food security for the future, not only for countries, but also for individuals. So I'm sitting there going, okay, well, what do you need in place to be able to navigate life? I need food, I need water, I need shelter, and I need some resources, and I need community. And so when you start thinking about those 5 things, then okay, great. Now you don't need to do everything all at once, but choose one area where you can actually start, okay, start learning around that. And then you set a cadence. And I talk to my clients about setting a metronome in their life, right? Around their money. And one of those biggest things is like a money night. Every week, spend 1 hour just with managing your finances, learning about money, like taking care of some investments and just being on top of your finances. So I'd be sitting there saying that the biggest thing that I would say is empowerment is key, right? That's the thing that's going to give you the opportunity to be able to navigate what's coming in the world, because it's scary. It really is. And people are not prepared. They're going to get steamrolled.
Yes, so much gold in what you shared there. I love it. And I totally relate to, being a trainer and wanting to teach people. And of course, all teachers are learners, right? And no doubt, I would imagine you've had a lot of great mentors over the years. And do you continue to invest now in your personal development and business development?
More than ever. Yeah, more than ever.
Yeah.
What I have found is that my wealth has grown in unison with the amount I've invested in myself. One of the things I teach a lot of my students, and it's what a philosophy I've always lived by, is that you'll never out earn yourself, right? Like, you ask yourself the question, what comes first? Is $1 million in a bank account, or is a millionaire as a person? Okay. And that's something that's really important. You'll never out earn yourself. So if you want to sit there, you sit there and go, hey, I want to change my external resources, whether it be more money or a house or whatever it is. I want to make a change here. Then who do I need to become as a person, the quality person that can actually go and create and sustain that change for the future? And so for me, I've spent, I couldn't even tell you, well over 7 figures on mentors and trainings, and I spend more now than I have ever before, and I'll continue to do that, because that investment it's the ROI, return on that investment. The compound nature of that is infinite. It just keeps going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree. I've invested at least $500,000 in my business and personal development since 2005, and I continue to invest as well every single year. I've got multiple mentors, multiple coaches in different areas. And, you invest in 2 ways in life. They say you either invest your time to save money, or you invest your money to save time. And of course, time is the resource that is the most valuable, really. And when you think about it, a third of people die by the age of 65. And so many people say,
right? A third of people by 65. Oh my goodness.
And we saw so many through COVID as well just drop off right in their 50s, sudden heart attacks, all this cardiac arrest suddenly was happening. How interesting, right? And do your own research if you have had the jab. In fact, my whole family has. I'm the only one that didn't.
Yeah, me too. I'm exactly the same. My whole family. Yeah.
Yeah, no matter what I said, they still went ahead and did it. And, thankfully, most of them were okay. But my dad got shingles, and he ended up being in hospital for ages and was, complete burns. The same side he had the jab on, that whole side ended up with shingles. And you'll see a whole lot of ads that have come out about shingles since that too.
Wow.
Interestingly, right? And so, well, you say, well, I can't say I didn't tell you, right? But at least now he said he's not going to get any boosters. So at least that's something, right? But, everyone's got to make the choice for themselves. And whatever your decision has been, I respect your decision. A lot of people did it because they felt they had to. Well, no one was forcing you, right? You chose to stick with that job, perhaps, right? No one forced you to do it. You could have quit that job. You could have not traveled. You could have not entered restaurants and pubs for about 3 months in Australia. We couldn't enter restaurants and pubs because if you didn't have the jab, right? So, there's sacrifices that were made, and now it's all opened up again, right? And this is the thing, and this is crazy about the situation with going back to what you said about water, and that it's it's illegal in some places to actually harvest rainwater because the government controls that. Now, government means mind control, guys. Look it up. Government means mind control. And we've seen a lot of media programming over the years. I've worked in the media for 30 odd years myself. Media programming, channeling, watch the Outer Shadows documentary. Very, very interesting. Had about 10 million views in a month.
Out of Shadows, is that what it's called?
Out of Shadows. It's all about done by two Hollywood stunt guys, all about the media programming and the channeling that's been happening.
Wow.
And happens from a very young age. 10 million views in a month, and then got shut down on a whole lot of platforms. But
wow.
we do have the link in the Conscious Community Global Facebook group. I'll pop the link in the comments here. And I do recommend that just question everything, guys. You know, do your own research, because what we see in the mainstream media, particularly if it's blasted through like COVID was, you know that there's some hidden agendas at play. You know there's something else going on, right? I mean, I know now from experience, once you've had the red pill, there ain't no turning back to, you know, you start to question everything once you sort of, you know, see. And for me, the red pill came when a friend said to me, oh, you know, 9/11 was an inside job, don't you? And I said, what do you mean? And I started to research, etc. And sure enough, I saw all this footage and information that wasn't shown in the mainstream media. And I just put two and two together and used my logic and used my gut and my intuition to realize that, hey, maybe what I believe to be true isn't. Right? Maybe what is it that you believe to be true that maybe isn't, right? And so what about you, Todd? When did you take the red pill and start seeing things a bit differently?
What a great question. And it's really interesting that, and what you just said there about, like everyone's got to look at the agenda that's going on, and you look at the US, what's happening right now, and they're starting to push another jab and another, talking about more lockdowns, and there's more variants and things like that. And like, we have to start seeing through the veil. Like, it's so important. So, you know, I would actually say that my first red pill came back, as I said, where I shared my story earlier, when I broke myself, because I thought I was being a good citizen and just working hard and doing the things I was supposed to be doing, that I was taught I was supposed to do. And when I realized that, because I was doing all those things, I thought really, really well. But then I realized that it was a broken system. This was really the very first time that I sat there and I went, you know what? Okay, there's something's not right here. Okay, this doesn't feel right, right? There's something that's not being shown here or demonstrated. And when I started to go and research and meet some mentors and saw people who are playing this the money side of things, I'll start there and then I'll move on. But talking about the money side of things, I realized that the wealthy play by a different set of rules, right? Because there's a field of money for different people, right? There's the everyday people who exchange time for money and just follow by a certain set of rules, and they get a very predictable set of results. Then there is the governments and the tax offices and big corporations, and they have a different set of rules, and often they make those up and change those as they see fit. And there's the third game, which is being played, which is the game of the wealthy, and they play by a different set of rules altogether. So when I started to notice that, and when it came to money and wealth, all of a sudden I started to realize, well, I wonder if this game is being played differently in different ways in different arenas as well. And because of what I knew about health and things like that, but I was very much indoctrinated in a certain way of health as well as a personal trainer. You know, I used to eat chicken and rice 7 times a day because you have to get this amount of protein. You have to do this. I'm vegan now, and I'm very, very different in terms of my understanding around health and vitality and well-being. But when it started coming time to start talking about the agendas and what's going on, right, I remember this one moment where I was training at a gym years ago. It was actually in Runaway Bay. So you know where I'm talking about, Runaway Bay Sports Center. And there was a ad in the, stuck up on the wall, and it said, milk, the highest source of protein for post-workout. Now, and that was the ad. Now, I know a bit about health and I know a bit about well-being, so I knew it was bullshit from word go. And then it had in a little star asterisk at the bottom, and it said, when compared to water. And so then all of a sudden I started going, hang on, they're allowed to put this type of crap out for this? What else? What else am I being lied to about? And so it opened up this other rabbit hole that I started diving down around that side of things. And then when we started to look at, when I had my first daughter and started to look at vaccinations, and I was very privileged to have been involved with some different people at that type of level where they opened my eyes up to some different things that are going on, and just even cracked open a doorway a millimeter just for me to, and I'm a curious sucker. So I went through that and I started having a look. And then understanding that, they want to give my newborn daughter like 6 vaccinations within a foul swoop. Hell no, you're not coming anywhere near her. And then the push that was happening from the medical system and doctors and everybody else around that was, and when I saw all of this happening, all this push going on, I thought there's something not right here. And then when I started, I've worked extensively with, my spiritual journey expanded on that. And I've worked extensively with a lot of plant medicines and things like that over the last decade as well. And it had just opened up my arena and my level of awareness around the level of lies and, but honestly, betrayal that we are subject to in the Western world, and in many different, the entire world, right? In many different arenas. And I honestly learned what you were just saying before. I question everything. And I think that level of curiosity is a very powerful trait to have, like taking things to granted. And don't take what I say for granted. Don't take what you say for granted. Don't take what anybody tells you for granted. Like, actually go, that's interesting. And then open up a doorway so you can actually ask some better quality questions. Because when you start asking better quality questions rather than following blindly and just living your life on autopilot, then you're going to get some better quality answers.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, yeah, interesting you mentioned plant medicines there, because I did a ayahuasca plant ceremony weekend just last year, about this time last year, and
Beautiful.
that was mind-blowing for me. And I'd been friends with Jeffrey Slater for a while, and he always used to talk about it. And a lot of actually, the wealthy out there talk about these plant medicines, and I was very curious about it. It's all about your intention when you go into these plant medicine situations, ceremonies, etc. And for me, my intention was to be open to love, and then open. After that, I actually committed to a relationship for the first time in 7 years, which was major. I mean, that's all over now. It lasted about 9 months, but at least I was open. I was open to love, right? It's just, so your intention when you go in, and actually being open to, and I'm not saying, everyone go out and take drugs. These are plant medicines, and in fact, drugs just bring out what's already in you anyway. So I'm not suggesting to go out and get a whole lot of drugs for yourself. And I mean, of course, we're seeing the ice epidemic here in Australia, and yeah, very, very interesting times. But yeah, definitely question everything. And when we say red pill, blue pill, most people know that's from the Matrix, the reference from the Matrix. So there's a great documentary too, what you're saying about milk and meat as well. Meat's another interesting one. There's a documentary called What the Health, which is also in the Conscious Community Global Facebook group. You can check that one out in there as well. There's another one called Seaspiracy. There's so many amazing documentaries out there, Thrive documentaries. We now have mass media channels like BitChute and Rumble. We have Telegram. We have a whole lot of alternate media sources that do not censor the news, right? We've seen Facebook censored. We've seen YouTube censored. We've seen people shut down because of their presenting their views. We've seen natural health doctors be killed. In fact, I know I've heard of over 100 have been killed talking about natural health. And in fact, I know, well, some people might know Don Tolman. He had people come after him, talks about natural pharmaceutical medicine as far as pharmacy, or pharmacy as in FARM. So using food for healing the body. And if you look at the foods that we have, like, kidney beans are good for your kidney. We've got celery is good for your bones. It looks like your bones. We've got carrots are good for your eye. The end of the carrot looks like your eye. Avocado is good for women's, menstrual and ovaries, etc. Looks like that. We've got the tomatoes, like the chambers of the heart. When you open it up, it's good for the heart. Like, there's so much in nature that tells us how to do health. Yet we, and that's really, the fastest food around.
And so, I love that. And so what touching on that and linking back to the plant medicine stuff again, in Western society, we think we're so smart because we've got this thing called science, right? And then we disregard intelligence of the earth and intelligence of the plants and intelligence of medicines. And when I say medicines, I'm talking about plant medicines or the medicines of the earth that have been around for thousands upon thousands of years, right? Now, what's interesting, what you said before, is that the elite, so to speak, have still been accessing these plant medicines and using them for a long period of time, where it's in for everyday people, we're taught that it's illegal and you can't do this. I was talking to one of my teachers in this space very recently, and I saw a documentary around the use of tobacco, like, not bastardized tobacco in cigarettes. I'm talking about the master plan tobacco, and how it's been used as a snuff, and it still is in the elite circles within the UK and in Parliament House there. And so there's also Stephen Kotler wrote this book called Stealing Fire, I think is what it was. And so what it talks about is that through the ages, these kind of elite parties, so to speak, where they were accessing different states of consciousness using psychedelics and different things. And, as I said, I've worked a lot with plant medicines, with Mother Ayahuasca and Wachimitu and a lot of different things. And my work with that has been extraordinary. It's been the level of insight and coming back home is probably the best way to put it, has been absolutely extraordinary, right? And remembering that these have been around for thousands of years, and that it is part of the planet and part of the earth. And just like the foods, that everything that we need is sitting there, that we can be able to support us to be able to live the very best life we possibly can, if we're willing to look past the veil and actually see what's in front of us right now.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. And I remember reading a book called Fit for Health years ago. In chapter 10 there, it was talking about the dairy industry, and it said that we're not meant to be suckling from cows as human beings. And if you think about it, that's what you do when you have milk, right? It's like you're
sense, doesn't it? Yeah. The only species on the planet that drinks the milk of another species. Only one on the entire planet, right? Go figure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's go back to this topic here on how to protect and build your wealth. Now this is all related, because for those who are going to be building wealth, you want to know what to do with it. You want to. This is also about your sovereignty as a person, as a human being, right? This is about empowering you in all areas. So finance is just one area, but if you've got crap health, then it doesn't matter how much wealth you have, right? It doesn't matter. So, this is the thing. A lot of people, spend their health to get the wealth, and then they spend the wealth to get the health back, right? And so it's all actually very interrelated. So back to this, how to protect and build your wealth. Now, I must say, I haven't done things in the best way when it comes to property investing, because I had property in my name, and hence there's now a land tax issue, right? So if you need to know structuring, otherwise you're going to spend a hell of a lot of money paying taxes to the government, such as land tax, as I've paid now 200,000 land tax in the last 10 years. So how do people know where to go to get the right structuring advice? Who can they trust out there, really? And how do they know who?
Really good question. And unfortunately, it can be like finding a needle in a haystack with that type of stuff, right? But what we have to do is take a step back first and foremost and talk strategy first. Because without a strategy, without a plan, you're just wandering around the dark, and you're throwing a little bit here and you're throwing a little bit there, and you talk about structures. But why do I need the structure? What's the purpose of the structure? What is the purpose of this asset that I want to put in the structure? Is it for a long-term buy and hold? Is it for a cash flow strategy? Is it for a flip type of strategy? Like, we have to have a strategy first and foremost, right? Okay, well, where do we want to go? What's our outcome? Let's get very clear on where we are right now in terms of our numbers and our opportunity and our limiting factors and our current setup and our current strategy and potential. And let's start making a proper strategic plan to get your assets, being your money, your like equity, for example, your cash flow and your income, your energy, and all those, your time, all the different assets we have. And how do we utilize that most effectively, be able to get your money out there working harder for you, so you're not working hard for your money, and actually get assets, which are, because I learned this early on, that profits are better than wages, right? The late Jim Rohn coined that, and I think it's very true. But we need a plan in terms of our wealth overall, because the structures are just an individual cog in an overarching wealth system, right? So we have to think about our wealth overall as a system. And that system, we've got these individual cogs which are all a part of it: our income, our current level of assets, our current structuring that we have in there, our other income cash flow streams we have are coming in, our service, our retirement systems, the legacy that we want to pass down. They're all individual cogs as part of an overarching.
Todd will be back in just a sec, I'm sure. He's in the forest there, and he did say that his camera might freeze. So hopefully, there he is back again. There we go.
Right.
We saw that, and then So
okay,
where were you?
I only missed a couple of moments. So what we're going to do first and foremost is that this is rainforest challenges, right? So Elon Musk hasn't flown in his magic sleigh and solved all my internet problems just yet. I'm working on it, right? But what we got to do is that we got to go, what's the system? What's the wealth system that we're going to have? And then we get the individual cogs of the system, cash flow, assets, income, and how do we put them in the right place at the right moment to be able to actually spit out a predictable outcome at the end? Because that's what strategic investing is all about. It leads to a predictable outcome. Because when you don't have a plan, you're just relying on buying and hoping, and that's just gambling in my eyes. And when we talk about structuring, we have to think about the different types of structuring. Okay, we got to talk about private structuring. We got to talk about public structuring. Then we want to talk about offshore structuring, right? And so depending on what depth you want to go at to set yourself up so that you are unshakable in terms.
So you're unshakable was the last thing we heard. Hopefully Todd will be back in a sec. And for those joining us, if you have any comments or questions for Todd, please pop them in here. So unshakable, we got Todd.
Okay, cool. Apologies, everyone. So what you want to focus on doing is building this unshakable structure when it comes to your wealth, and I call it building a financial fortress around you, your family, and your portfolio and your legacy, right? So that no matter what comes your way in the future, that you know that you're going to be okay, right? And so structuring is just a part of that cog, but a lot of people put the cart before the horse, right? When they think about investing, they're thinking about, well, let's buy a property, let's buy a share, and they're missing literally the vast majority of the game. So strategy first, deal second, and structuring is a part of that process.
Yeah, I love that. And I wish in hindsight, before I bought my last property, that I actually knew about land tax, and suddenly I got hit with this $15,000 bill after I bought that property back in 2012, and so it's carried on. And of course, the land tax keeps going up depending on the value of your property, and of course, the land keeps going up, so your land tax keeps going up as well. And if I'd only just structured it correctly, or bought in a trust, or did things a bit differently there, it could have made the world of difference. However, hindsight's a beautiful thing, and at least I acted and I bought property. You're right. So don't worry about everything being perfect, right? As well, I'd say that, and I think a lot of people let perfection get in the way of progress, and take some action. Although ideally, if you work with experts, then you can definitely fast track your success and save a lot of money. So Todd, for those that want to work with you, how do they work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, as I said, I'm a teacher at heart, and that's what I do. So I run a series of different programs where teaching people, basically unpacking the 20 years of experience that I have in being a professional investor and nerding out in this space in a big way, and the tens of thousands of people I work with on strategies, and turning it into a system that you can then go and take and you can follow step by step by step. I teach all my students just to learn one thing, do one thing. Don't try and do everything all at once. Because wealth creation is a marathon, it's not a sprint. A lot of people, they spend 20, 30 years of their life getting themselves into a certain financial situation, and then they expect it to change overnight. And it's the wrong mentality. The get rich quick leads to short-term decision-making. Short-term decision-making sacrifices long-term results. So to me, I work with investors who are serious about creating sustainable wealth for themselves and their future, and to leave a legacy for themselves, for a family, and for the planet, right? That's who I work with. And so the different ways I work with people is teaching you how to actually create your very own strategy and create your very own plan. And so when I work with people, it's all about strategy, structure, system, right? How do we create a strategic and personalized strategy based on your situation? How do we structure you so you're safe and that you're set up that for not only for now, but for the future? Then how do you actually systemize your wealth so your money is out there making more money for you? And that's what we want to be able to focus on doing. So two key ways. One, I run some programs teaching you how to do that, where you get the empowerment yourself. And then for those that want some more one-on-one attention, I do work with some people more hands-on who want to kind of accelerate their process and buy time. We work with myself one-on-one.
Fantastic. And you do have a property challenge coming up, 5-day property. Can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, for sure. So I put out a lot of really cool free content and free education for on an ongoing basis. Anyone that's been around my world, you'll see I do a lot of these type of events in different ways. And so one of the things I have coming up, literally starting next week, which is really, really exciting, is a 5-day property challenge and property investing challenge. And it's absolutely for free. It's not going to cost you a single dime. So over the 5 days, we're going to be together live on 3 of those days. And for a couple of hours each day, I'm going to be going to town with you, teaching you how to create a system which will generate 100K passive income through property investing. On day number 1, we're going to be focusing on how do you create your very own strategy. On day number 2, we're going to be talking about financing, because when it comes to building a multi-million-dollar portfolio, finance it's not the deals that makes the difference. It's the finance, which is going to be the biggest differentiator, whether you actually build it or not. We're going to be talking about structuring and protecting yourself at that time as well. And then day number 3, we're going to be talking about how do you access the off-market deals that make you more profit and cash flow, because the best deals never go to real estate to common domain. They're always done off-market. And so over the 5 days, we're going to be going to town on this type of process that actually teach you how to build a plan to create your 100K in income through investing.
Fantastic. And we've popped the link there in the chat for you. So you can just go along there to that link in the chat, wherever you're watching this, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube. Just hop along there. And if you can't see the link right now, it will be there shortly after this live stream. Sometimes the comments don't go to all the streams at once. So if you're not, it'll be there soon. So just hang in or come back to where you're watching this live stream. And for those who've joined us, let us know where have you joined us from in the comments. And if you have any questions for Todd or for myself, just pop those in the comments as well. We'd love to hear from you. You can see quite a few people are on here. So please let us know and what you're learning so far. We've covered quite a lot of ground here, I must say, Todd. And so you're a very dynamic guy, Todd, I must say. I've admired your work for quite a while, and I'm actually a client of Todd's as well. Bought one of Todd's programs many years ago, and I love what you do, and I love particularly that you speak your truth and that you're helping to empower people with their sovereignty. I think this is so important. What are your thoughts right now about what's happening with the push for the cashless society that's going on at the moment? What are your thoughts around that? And if people sort of don't have a lot of spare cash right now, how can they at least start to do something to get sovereign financially?
Yeah, look, great questions. So when I look at the whole cashless society, which is happening, and we saw this agenda starting to be pushed during COVID, right? And cash is being removed from the system, right? And that's what's been happening. And so we're starting to move towards the central bank digital currency. And quite frankly, it's going to be another system of control, and the level of the encroachment on our liberties is insane already. There's been a systematic creep in our liberties. It's been going on for a fair while. And from COVID, this process is being accelerated, right? And the whole COVID, pandemic type of thing that was created, there was a reason that was actually created. And there was a health reason, an emergency and a crisis, which gave permission for the government to go and encroach on people's liberties. And this is continuing. And so it's set a platform for more and more of this to happen in the future. Now, when we talk about the central bank digital currency, which is coming, it's live in Australia already. And within the next 1 or 2 years, it's going to be introduced, right? I was interviewing the operations manager of Blockchain Australia with my crew. I get to bring in a lot of really cool experts to be able to do an interview as part of my my private clients that I work with. And she was talking about that this is going to be live literally within the next 1 or 2 weeks. But if we 1 or 2 years, but when we think about this, if it's all based on the central bank digital currency, if the tax office want to tax you, they tax you. If they want to fine you, they fine you. If they want to block your income, they block your income. The levels of control which are coming, which is going to be encroach on our freedom and on our privacy and on our liberties, is absolutely insane, right? And so when I start thinking about that, I go, okay, well, we need to put 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the system, right? We put 1 foot in and we look like a duck and we quack like a duck, and we can operate within the system itself. But then we have to set ourselves up so we have other options where we have some more privacy, we have some more sovereignty. And this is where I love the work in cryptocurrency and the actual ethos of cryptocurrency and decentralization. I had one of my good buddies. I ran a retreat out at my rainforest just a couple of weeks ago with some private clients. And it was all this type of stuff that we were talking about. And I had one of my good buddies coming in and talking about creating a decentralized life. And so the way I look at it, I go, okay, a lot of people, especially in the sovereignty or community, they avoid these things and they go, no, I don't want a part of it. And they avoid it completely. And what that means is that they don't understand it. And because they don't understand it, they can't navigate it and they can't interact with it. And so they're actually in a worse off position because they're just trying to avoid the whole thing of where the world is actually going. Now, if you're going to go just off and live on a commune and be completely off grid, cool, maybe you can do that. But for most people that still need to interact in life, what we need to understand is that we don't want to move away from it. We want to understand it so we can navigate it. And then we want to start setting up some elements around us to be able to allow us to interact in different ways. And that's where we use cryptocurrencies, decentralization. We learn how to protect our privacy more. We learn how to have different elements set up in different locations and different jurisdictions and things like that. So we have this options so that no matter what comes our way, we've got resources at our disposal where we can go and pivot this way or pivot this way or pivot this way. And so that we've got choices, because those without choices just have to go with the flow because they haven't set themselves up to begin with. And that's what I'm going to see. Probably 90% of the population is going to happen. Okay. So when it comes to central bank digital currency, it concerns me greatly. It really does. But whenever there is a poison, there's a cure. And so I always like to think about this because some people operate in the space purely from a space of fear, and they operate from a space of anger and a space of hatred and all this type of stuff. And as much as I can rant about these things and I get, it impacts me deeply. It really does. Like I'm all about freedom, people's freedom of choice and freedom of life and freedom of how they want to live. And some of the stuff that's been going on, it impacts me deeply, which is why I do what I do. Right. And so when we have that empowerment, we can actually create some options and choices in our life. And not only that, it then means you're empowered that you can pass that gift on to somebody else. And that's that ripple effect that we want to see on the planet.
Yeah,
I completely forgot your second question. You had another question, Alwyn. You have to ask that one again. I completely forgot.
I forgot what the question was. I was so engrossed in what you were saying. It was amazing. So, we'll say how people can work with you, etc. You've already covered that. The future plans for you. Have we talked about that?
Right. We haven't yet. But so what the question was is that people who don't have a lot of money, right, is what you were asking about. What can they start doing? I just remember that. Yeah. Just remember that. Yeah. And so here's what I think about. Everyone starts from ground zero. I started with nothing. I had zero money when I first started, like nothing. Like I was broke, living paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of people are in that situation, I understand. And a lot of people use that as a reason not to get started. And they have these things, or when I have money, then I'll start investing. Or when my partner's more supportive, then I'll do this. When my boss gives me a raise, then I'll do this. When the government does this, then I'll do this. When my kids grow up, then I'll do this. And they have all these reasons why that it's not the right moment, they're not the right time, and they're waiting for their guardian angel to tap them on the shoulder and just let them know, hey, today's the day. And people spend their entire lives waiting. And that's the biggest mistake of all, right? Now, we want to start building the habit of wealth. And I've mentioned this a lot, and I talk about this a lot because it really is true. The biggest differentiator of those who build wealth versus those that don't is not the amount of money they have. It's not the amount of income that you earn. It's what it is your commitment to make a change in your life and your commitment to stay the course. And so I talk a lot about micro investing, right? So when I start thinking about building a foundation, so when we talk about someone from the ground up, we have to build a foundation of wealth. And that foundation is a few different elements. Number one, it's getting yourself financially educated. And on top of the challenge I have coming up, I run a free Facebook community called the Wealth Dojo. And we've got thousands of investors in there right now. And all is a community of cool people who want to learn how to take control of their money and learn how to invest. And again, I share a lot of really cool stuff in there. And that's a great place for people to get started, to come and get some leveling up their financial IQ. So part of their foundation is you want to start leveling up your financial IQ. The next part of the foundation is developing a personal finance system. And so what I talk about there is that everyone's had the experience of evaporating money in their life, right? Where money comes into their life and it just magically dissipates into the universe. And so the reason why that is the case is that people don't have a plan for their money, but they just, money comes in and they just spend it willy-nilly. And so what we want to do instead is that we want to install a personal finance system. So as soon as a dollar hits your bank account, it has a plan and has a purpose, because money has an energy. And when money isn't valued in its current environment, where it doesn't have a purpose, it goes stagnant. And then it will tend to flow out of your life and go to someone who actually is giving that money a strong purpose in life, right? So we get ourselves educated. We set a personal finance system in place. And then one of the next things that we do is that we start micro investing. And there are many different apps and different opportunities out there where you can start investing for a single dollar. There is literally zero excuse for anyone not to be investing. And here's what happens when you get started investing. You put $1 in this week, you put $1 in next week, you put $2 in the following week, $3 in, and you start building it up bit by bit. When you start investing your focus into that environment, all of a sudden you start paying more attention. As you start paying more attention, it becomes more normal to you. As it becomes more normal to you, you create more confidence around it. As you create more confidence around it, you feel more empowered to interact in the system and understand different things. As you begin doing that, you take more action, and this compound nature effect of wealth building kicks into gear at another level. Right. But it all starts from that foundational level. Let's start creating a financial foundation and an ecosystem that supports you growing wealth for your future, and just start one foot in front of the other, after the other, after the other.
I love that. 50% of anything you do is just starting, my friends.
Yeah,
and of course, having this kind of great advice, knowing where to go, knowing how to do it, I think is really important, having a great environment of people around you. And so that's fantastic. You've got the Wealth Dojo Facebook group. I've actually got the link in here for you. So check that out, Wealth Dojo Facebook group, Todd's group there. It looks very, very cool. So check that out. We will wrap up shortly, Todd. I must say it's been a great pleasure chatting with you, and we could keep on chatting, I'm sure, about all sorts of topics. I am curious what future plans you have for your business and for your life moving forward.
Yeah, another beautiful question. To me, this is far more than about running a business. This is legacy for me. This really is. I know I'm here to have an impact on the planet, and I found what my purpose for being here on the planet was a little while ago, right? And in the end, it's about giving people the resources and empowering them so they can actually create freedom in their life, and that's what it really is all about, right? And so, to me, it's a giving people the financial education that we all should have been taught. And not only just the financial education, but the sovereignty education, and helping to empower people so that they are in control of their financial futures and ultimately in control of their destiny, right? And so what I do is far more driven from purpose than it is about just running a business, right? This is legacy stuff for me. There's no two ways about it. And so that's one of the biggest things, right? In terms of the rest of my life, I've bought this beautiful rainforest, and this is a legacy place for me as well. And I am very much creating a community here and setting this up as a space for healing and a space for growth. And my partner and I, we're growing food forests and a whole lot of really beautiful things in here. We're setting ourselves up to go off grid, but also to be able to have a space where people can actually come and learn and come and grow and come and heal and come and have deeper understandings and have lots of community. And so for me, this is another major thing that I'm focusing on right now. But then number 3 is family for me. When I say 3, that's actually number 1, but let's call it that. But to me, it's in the end, the greatest meaning comes from the people who are closest to us. And so I've had the privilege to create a life and an environment where I have a lot of freedom and I have a lot of choices and I have a lot of opportunities. And so now being able to go and spend that to be a father and be a partner and to be all those different type of things is what drives me more than anything now, right? And with that in mind, that then drives me to help other people to have those same opportunities as well. Hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that. And, if you look at the wheel of life, being successful can mean many many different things to many different people, but really when you want to have ideally a fairly balanced wheel of life in all areas of life. You want to be considering how you want to be doing life, not just family, it's health, it's travel, it's adventure, it's your spiritual life, it's all the different areas, business, etc. Right? So it's and I don't know anyone who's got a complete balanced wheel of life, because usually when you put more effort into one area, something else falls behind, etc. However, the last few times I've done my wheel of life and I've measured it out of 10, I'm usually sitting around at 8.75 or so. So, to about 9-ish. So I'm pretty happy with most areas of my life. And it's a constant thing. And I think really it's about enjoying the journey, because, for most people, as we know, the biggest regret of the dying is living a life not true to yourself.
Yeah. And you want to make life an adventure, right? Like what an opportunity to live on the planet, right? In this gorgeous space that we get to call home, being Mother Earth. I mean, what a beautiful space to be able to be in and be able to explore and be able to make the most of it and see all the beauty and the gifts of, because we can focus on some of the shit that goes on, right? But when we also we have to look at the flip side and go, what's the gift of all this? What's the gift of that we see in humanity, the gift that we see in the planet, and how can we go and leave the world in a better place? And whether that's the world just being your family or the people that you love and care about in your community, or maybe it's a bigger impact you want to have. Maybe it's about being able to explore and consciousness, or explore the world and live this life of adventure, and then let your life be an example for others. Like, that's the greatest transformation that we're ever going to give anyone else, is in us living our own fullest expression. And so what greater purpose there can be than can be on the planet than to us live it in our fullest expression, to be able to give all of our gifts and come to the end of the time and just go, do you know what, I was here, I truly showed up and I gave everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I put a quote on my Facebook the other day saying that if you don't believe in miracles, perhaps you've forgotten that you are one.
Yeah, totally.
We are
So
one in a billion just by being born, right? It is such an incredible gift, and we're going to have our highs and lows. It's the roller coaster ride of life. And I'd love to, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear some of your success principles on how do you make sure that your life is the best it can be? Like, what are some of your daily practices, maybe, or some of the things you do when you face challenges?
Yeah, great question. I learned early on is that structure equals freedom, right? And I learned that very early on, right? Where I can tend to be a little bit erratic in my thinking. I'm a creator style profile, and my a million different ways and a million different moments and a million different times. And I have ideas coming out, and I can get distracted easily and all that type of stuff. And what I really learned early on is that structure equals freedom. And so I became very nerdy at kind of structuring, especially my mornings. My morning is that's my time. It's my sanctuary. And so every morning for me is always health. It's always family, and it's always meditation, right? Without fail. And I will not let anything get in the way of that, right? Because that's my time. That's the most important things that I do that set me up for every single day for a life of success. Okay, so I'm big into routines, and I'm very big into structuring, and I'm very big into strategic habits. Okay, so I'm very big on that, right? It's a big thing for me. I'm also an avid learner. I love exploring new ideas, and I love exploring consciousness and things like that, and having thinking time set aside. I read this book by Rich Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's actual Rich Dad. His name is Keith Cunningham, for those who don't know. And he's got this great book called The Road Less Stupid. And I love it. I think it's great. But one of the things he talks about in there is that every day, and I don't do it every day, but a few times a week, I just have thinking time. And so this thinking time is zero distraction, is me with a bit of paper and a pen, and just where I sit down and I think. I might have a question I'm meditating on, and I'm just writing ideas about it. I might have nothing. I might have a blank piece of paper and seeing what comes out. Because you know what? In those moments of silence, those moments of stillness, this is where we actually tap into deeper parts of ourselves. Because we can get the easiest thing in the world is get distracted. That's the easiest thing in the world, and being busy, right? And I used to do that a lot, right? I was just busy all the time because I had part of my own ego was attached with, Todd's always busy and I'm productive and I'm doing this and all of that type of stuff. But what I was being lazy was what I was actually being, right? As opposed to setting time aside to actually go and stop and sit and think and be and to actually learn and think about things, because those moments of silence where I get the greatest insights. So when I think about the big success principles for me, it's having a strategic routine that I know that sets me up for success. It's about having moments of time and stillness where I can actually be with my thoughts and be with myself, as opposed to being distracted, because that's where the greatest insights come from, right? And then the third thing for me is that I guess I'm an avid learner. I always have things in my ears and listening to different things at different points of time and different moments. And the more I learn, the more I grow, right? And um, for me, those are some of the three key things that I do. And when it comes to like wealth building, it's all about the system. It took me some time to install the system, but now the system works not on autopilot, and never does, but it's working in a way where I have leverage in my life, and I've removed as much friction as I possibly can, so I can focus on the most important things rather than getting sucked into the minutiae of life.
Fantastic. And in fact, all successful people I know meditate as well. So that's interesting. You mentioned meditation.
Successfully, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And what does meditation look like for you? Do you do guided meditations or silence, or what is that? And how much meditation do you do every day?
Yeah, I mean, every day would probably be, 20 odd minutes. I don't sit there for hours on end or things like that. It's 20 minutes. Sometimes it's breath work. Sometimes it's just like 10 minutes of breath work and then 10 minutes of stillness and silence. Sometimes it is working with some plants that I work with a lot. Sometimes that meditation is just finding some silence up on, I have some beautiful waterfalls in my property, and going up and just going for a 20-minute walk, and then just being there in nature and just sitting down with my eyes open, just taking in the sounds of the birds and the water trickling and things like that. And sometimes that's all the meditation that's needed, right? People make this a really big thing where it doesn't have to be. What if you just sit in silence for 10 minutes and just go ground yourself in the earth and go enjoy some nature? It doesn't have to be simple. It's complex. It can just be simple things which make all the difference.
Fantastic. And just any tips on how to overcome challenges in life, and any particular challenges you'd like to share that how you came through a particular challenge, and what do you recommend for that?
Goodness gracious. Oh, this could be a whole nother hour or 2 hours or something. So I'll be careful. So here's what I know to begin with. Get over thinking that your challenges are going to go away. Just get over it. Be done with it. Like just put that idea and thought aside and be done with it, and just get over it, right? And secondly, stop beating the shit out of yourself, because we can be amazing at beating the crap out of ourselves, right? And I've been great at that at different things in my life, right? So when we can first off just go and put those two things aside and be done with those elements, all of a sudden that we can actually see challenges as in a different way, and we see it as an opportunity. Doesn't mean it doesn't create stress. Doesn't mean there's not some things that overcome. It doesn't mean any of those type of things. But what it means is that we're in a better space to be able to actually go overcome these challenges to begin with. So I'm quite a deep thinker. So whenever there's a challenge which is in front of me, I will tend to go into my space, and I'll think, and I'll go into kind of almost a meditation about it, because I want to start to unpack it, and I want to unpack it, why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling about it, and why I've been triggered by that in a particular way, because then I get out of just being in a reactive response, and I go back into in control. Because often in challenges, a lot of people go, well, there's a challenge, and it's outside of their control because it's all this external stuff that's going on, right? It's the same as COVID. It's the same as all the other shit we've been talking about. If we base our sense of self and our level of control on all the external stuff, then nothing is within our own mechanism of control. And we've got to go, well, all the stuff is happening, but what can I do right now? Because it's not about what happens, it's what the meaning of what happens is what makes a difference. And how do we choose to respond? No matter what comes along, I always sit there and I have this fundamental thing, is that I take total and unequivocal responsibility for my part to play in it. And more importantly, I take responsibility for what I'm going to do next. Now, I don't get it perfect all the time. Sometimes I stuff the whole thing up, and sometimes I fall into, nah, that's shit and I don't like it. Like I just lost a good investment opportunity, and I sit there and I go, I did everything I was supposed to be doing, and some shit happened and someone didn't do the right thing by me. I lost this investment opportunity. It cost me like 300, 400 grand, right? And I went into a moment of going, this is shit. And I said some other words other than that, but like, I was not a happy camper. And at the end, like I could sit there and put all my energy out into this, or I could sit there and go, okay, great. What can I learn from this? What am I going to do differently moving forward? And what's my next step going to be? And as soon as I switched it and changed it from this blame, negative, external, and took back control, because which every single one of us has, all of a sudden the challenge isn't a challenge anymore. It's just a thing that happens. It's an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to do things differently moving forward. And that's the way I approach things now.
I love that. Everything happens for you, not to you, they say. And the sooner we get the learning, the sooner we can move on. And in fact, I don't know any wealthy people who haven't lost a lot of money in investments at some point because they've taken more risks, right? However, they always know how to make it back again and more. Right.
I lost everything in my early 20s because I didn't protect myself. So when you're talking about structuring, I'm hypersensitive around this because, although I built a lot of wealth in a short period of time, that one property allowed me to quickly snowball in a next deal. And I built a lot of wealth in a short period of time, but I did not protect myself. I didn't have the experience that I have right now. And so I built this house of cards. And all that had to happen was the wind to blow in the opposite direction. And my house of cards almost came tumbling down completely, which is a very humbling experience, right? But it made me an infinitely better coach now. And I'm very grateful for the experience that I now have the opportunity to do things radically different, but also teach people how to do things radically different and learn from my mistakes so you don't have to repeat them.
Yes, absolutely. My cat just jumped up on me.
That. Yeah, I know.
The beauty of live streaming. So
100%.
But look, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Todd, I must say. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And we have those links in there, the 5-day property challenge next week. Now, wrapping up, is there a quote or motto that you live by that you'd like to leave us with?
I just paused there for a moment. So you just said something about the last thing I want to leave you with.
Oh, is there a motto or a quote that you live by, that some inspiration, something you live by that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, do you know what? It's actually the one that I've already said, is that you'll never out-earn yourself, right? And that is the biggest thing that I could say to people, that you'll never out-earn yourself. Become the quality of person who can create the level of results that you want to see in life. And then all just focus on being that person and being fully congruent with what you say and what you think, what you say and what you do is all in alignment together. And when we can actually live from that space of truth, it's a challenging thing to do. There's no doubt about it. But and focus on becoming that quality person and create the level of impact that you want to be able to create in your life, your whole world will focus on changing.
I love that. Thank you so much, Todd. And for those who want to connect with you, of course, we'll put the links there. Check it out. Lots of ways to connect. And the Wealth Dojo group, of course, on Facebook. Any other ways to connect with you?
Yeah, so social media, type in Todd Polke, Polke is the surname, and you'll find me on all social media. I have a YouTube channel. I'm in Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, and certainly LinkedIn. So people can certainly, just connect on that. I'd love to connect with you. Love to have you part of the Wealth Dojo group. Love to see you at one of the free live events that I have. The more people that can learn these tools and learn these strategies, the better. To become more empowered human beings that can impact the planet at a deeper level. So yeah, please come and connect. I'd love to meet you all.
Beautiful, Todd. Thank you so much. And for those who want to connect with me, all my links are at linktree/Aldwin. That's linktr.ee/Aldwin. I've popped that there in the chat for you as well. And we have every month a free global good news challenge. So something I'm really passionate about is helping to share more truth and good news with the world and helping to decrease depression and suicide rates. And I'm a big animal lover. And this is my rescue cat, Pablo, that's been popping in. I just lost my nearly 16-year-old cat last week. And after 3 days of crying, I was then led to this beautiful rescue cat that's waving his tail in front of the screen. And
my rescue dog was whining at the door just beforehand. So I understand. I get you. Yeah, she's beautiful. I love her to death. Yeah.
So it's a real blessing to be able to impact other lives, other beings, whether it's human or animal. And of course, the more self-love we have, the more love flows out to others. And so here's to everyone enjoying the big roller coaster ride of life. And my favorite quote I will leave you with is this one from Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And for those who've joined us, thank you so much for joining us live or on the replay. Please let us know what you got out of this today. If you've enjoyed it, share the love. You can connect also. I've got a YouTube channel, over 1,000 videos or so on there as well, Media Queen TV. Check that out. Let's stay connected, and wishing you all the very best. Todd, any final words before we wrap up?
No, I just so appreciate you, Aldwin, like what you do and how you give, and you speaking your truth as well. Every compliment you gave to me along that way, I just want to throw that back to you. It's just beautiful to be able to connect with people that are willing to kind of talk what they see and be able to there to actually impact other people's lives. So you great service to people. I appreciate you a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Blessings to you, Todd, and to your loved ones as well. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll see you again on Media Queen TV sometime very soon. Thanks so much, and have a magnificent day. Bye for now.
Thank you.